Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal. I, of course, am your host, Nat the Truth Jones. With me, as always, the Wolf of Roto Street himself. This is not just a regular episode. This is like allegedly a live episode. Could that be possible, Wolf? Have we reached that threshold of technology in 2018 where we are actually broadcasting live for the first time? Is that possible? Is that really what's going on?
That's the hopes. We'll find out if this actually works. I certainly am not the most technological savvy man out there.
No,
but
sir, you are not.
No, neither one of us are. You're trapped in like 1970 and don't even know what a cell phone is yet, still blasting Kesha. And I don't even, I'm certainly no millennial that knows all this stuff, but we're going for it. We're testing it out. And, the goal would be getting more user engagement. It's draft season, baby. So this is when people's questions are at the highest. This is when people need the most help, and getting a live broadcast in would make it even more useful for you guys. So if people are tuning in, this is our first time. We didn't really advertise it. Who knows if anybody's actually tuned into this or not, but if you are and you got a question, shoot us our way. This is the time to get those questions in, baby.
Yeah, and this will be up as a podcast, for those of you that subscribe, and I know many of you do. So this information is going to come to you one way or another, regardless of what decade you're living in. As I loved your comment about me being stuck in 1970 listening to Kesha, because she was huge in 1970. I have to say, I think she was negative 25 years old, maybe negative 30 then. So well played, sir. Anyway, here we are in the intro. We got a lot of things going on, obviously. I'm kind of on pins and needles here because the Roto Street Journal Expert Draft is directly following our broadcast. At 8 o'clock, we're kicking off. All the guys that work for RSJ, and most of them are not stupid, unfortunately. So The draft is going to probably be pretty difficult. We got a half-point PPR league, 12 teams. We don't know what slot we're drafting or anything like that yet, so we're just going to plunge in face first. Are you excited for this, Wolf?
Of course I am. It's actually my first draft of the season too, so I can't wait to get the juices going. I know, no rust. Obviously,
I've probably done 650 mock drafts.
That's a very huge underestimate. I've done about 1 million at this point. Yesterday, I for National Draft Day too, in case you didn't know, it was National Draft Day. I put out a tweet. I'm going to do as many mock draft wizards as anybody wants. Ended up doing about 15, 20 throughout the day. Helped out the Meat Sweats, had his live draft yesterday. He came over for his draft. It was fantastic, and he's got a good question for us later on. But yeah, I'm excited to shake off the rust. Get my first one in. I got my college league coming up Wednesday, and the big hometown auction coming up Thursday. So right in the heart of everything. School starts this week too, so I'm all over the place. It's gonna be a busy week, and I love it.
Yeah, well, we also got preseason week 3 in the books. I've actually started watching a lot of these games. All the meaningful action has wrapped up. We're a week away from real football. This is key. Like Thursday night game next week counts. So get your drafts done. Updated draft day edition guide is coming out. This is a recap of the entire 2018 preseason, our biggest takeaways, an updated list of bargains, overpriced players, penny stocks, a fresh draft. This one, the Roto Street Journal's actual draft for all the marbles, updated cheat sheet, a must get. It's all there. And I probably a bunch more than I didn't say too. But anyway, rotostreetjournal.com/draft day. That's all one word, draft day. Preview tonight with our 2018 preseason recap. We got a big show coming up. Is there anything I missed before we get started?
I think you nailed it all. I mean, this is obviously, once the preseason week 3 wraps up, it's kind of when everyone starts to rest and you get really ready for that season. So, there shouldn't be too many other meaningful waves throughout the fantasy universe. Maybe Dez actually does sign somewhere. Maybe there's God forbid, a horrible practice injury like Deshaun Watson suffered week 8 last year. Hope to God none of that stuff happens. We should be pretty set. So if you haven't checked out the big board, that's been flaming lately, but rotostreetjournal.com/big board. I update it in real time anytime the news happens. rotostreetjournal.com/stockwatch. Another great way to track all those meaningful moves. We're going to dive into those stock watches in a second, but just make sure you're bookmarking those as draft season hits. Those 2 tools out of anything we do on the site, I would say, are just as useful as anything, plus the draft guide that you just promoted.
Agree totally. Let me just ask you this before we get into the stock watch, and we do have a couple noteworthy stock watch things to talk about. Do you think anyone should sign Dez Bryant, and do you think anyone will?
At this point, I would love to see the Patriots do it. If anybody should. Really? Yeah, honestly. Who else do they freaking have at this point? We got Adam suspended for 4 weeks. Decker's gone, retired. There's nobody else there. They'll figure it out. It's the Patriots. The run game, they'll use Burkhead and James White a ton in the receiving game as well. But ultimately, I would love to see Brady get a weapon like Dez. I don't know how he looks. Obviously, it could be a locker room headache, but a place like New England would be perfect. Who knows if he could wrap his head around this entire offense, though. But, ultimately, Brady can still put the ball where he wants it. Dez is still a physical freak. The most touchdowns in the league since, 2013 or something like that. The
touchdowns, I think, receiving in Cowboys history. Which is, I mean, for obvious reasons, you could never have had Eric Decker and Des Bryant on the same football team. But now that Decker is gone, that would potentially open the door for Dez's addition to the team. Anyway, we'll discuss that more in depth later. It's our first live show, so we probably we won't sully it with stuff like that. We're going into the stock watch, and just to give you a quick, kind of agenda breakdown, we're going to talk Marquise Lee's injury, the Jaguars receivers in general, Josh Gordon back for now. Doug Baldwin, Devontae Parker update. I hate Devontae Parker updates. I seriously, I hate Devontae Parker updates. But we're going to do it anyway, and we're going to talk about the Dolphins receiving core. So we're going to get right into this right now. Number one, we're going to talk Marquise Lee. Per Adam Schefter, Jaguars wide receiver Marquise Lee is being placed on injured reserve today. That's a serious injury. Obviously, he suffered knee ligament damage Saturday night versus Atlanta on a hit that some believe is related to the NFL's recent rule changes, leading with the helmet and so on. His season over. Wolf, talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty big news. It's obviously the fifth, not obviously, I should say very surprisingly, the fifth highest scoring attack last year were the Jaguars in terms of points per game. So they put up some points. Nathaniel Hackett's already said that we're going to be more aggressive in year two. Breakdoors really has a better command of the entire offense, which will let us take more shots. So if this offense does take another whole step forward as a unit, that's a big thing for this passing game. And now one less mouth is there to eat the targets. Obviously, you feel bad for Marquise Lee. I'm not saying, this is a good thing for real life. Obviously, it stinks. But ultimately, for fantasy-wise, it does clear the path just a little bit, makes that target totem pole a little bit clearer. My favorite to emerge is their leading receiver of last year, which kind of blows my mind. This guy led the team, was Keelan Cole, an undrafted free agent, kind of came out of nowhere and just dominated. He's an athletic guy. He kind of streaks down the field really easily, can go up and make plays over people. I really like Keelan Cole. And obviously last year, if you followed us, you knew this guy exploded down the stretch, kind of like Adam Thielen almost a couple years, eerily similar to how those two just absolutely blew up. This guy, he's logged the most snaps with the first team offense, 78% this preseason, 42 of the 53 pass plays of the first team offense. Cole was the main guy in there. So this guy has been the number one option there in the preseason outside of Lee. Those two kind of were starting. And I think he could pick up where he left off. Obviously, that's, not as the number two receiver, which he was for that humongous breakout stretch. The last 4 weeks, he only trailed, one other receiver, Keenan Allen, that during that span. He had a 186-yard touchdown game, 108-yard 6-catch game, 99 in a TD, 49 in a TD. I mean, this guy blew up. But that suggests to me that this guy could do it again. So he's my favorite target. I really like any of them, though, because they all go well beyond round 12 or so. And again, this offense could take that next step. Blake Bortles could be even better in year two of this system. So maybe D.D. Westbrook becomes the guy. Maybe it's Dante Moncrief finally realizes his upside. I'll take a stab at any of the three plus Austin Seferian-Jenkins left. At tight end, maybe any of those three could emerge with one less mouth to feed. Again, my bet's Keelan Cole. He's my favorite. But who knows exactly? How can you project it? Maybe it's a headache every single week. Either way, Marquise Lee removed will make it a little bit clearer for them all.
All right. I mean, I found last year when we were fooling around with Jags receivers late in the year, I remember I picked up D.D. Westbrook late in the season, and he did have one or two good games, but it was just kind of a source of stress constantly. And Cole ended up maybe having the bigger games. All right, let's talk Josh Gordon. There's been a Josh Gordon sighting. He was activated from the Browns reserve / the non-football injury list, which is always a dubious place to be. Despite clearing this hurdle, Gordon is not currently practicing due to a hamstring ailment. What the hell is this about? Like, whoa. Anyway, while Browns coach Hugh Jackson said Josh Gordon will play, but not start in week one. Great news for all you Josh Gordon. I mean, I guess actually it is better news than like hell.
Right. Yeah. It's tricky though, right? Like he gets finally activated. He's off this list. Nope.
Right.
Yeah. So he's finally activated. So that's the good news, right? Is like that was the main, clear. that was the hardest thing to figure out. Would he get off this list? Would he actually be active? So it's good that he's active. And the hamstring thing, I was reading from that Dr. Chu guy, the guy that the fantasy doctor, whatever they call him. He was saying this is pretty common that if somebody comes off of this and right in the first kind of week of not practicing in football activities, the hamstrings, there's tightness, things like that. So I'm not overly worried about that either. And I'm not overly worried about the whole starting designation. The guy hasn't been with the team. It seems like a coaching move to not just let this guy walk in and suddenly be a starter. I could see him playing just as many snaps as he normally would, as long as those hamstrings are fine. It's still obviously, a little bit riskier now that he's not going to be a guaranteed starter. Maybe he's on a pitch count for that first week. I doubt you could start him, and it makes him a little bit less attractive in a draft. When you're drafting this guy, you have to pay, fifth round price or so at that point. You're not getting a starter in the fifth round. I'd almost rather have a guy like Mark Ingram at that point than if I'm not taking an immediate starter. At least I know what Mark Ingram's going to be doing. But ultimately, Gordon's upside is still enormous. He's got Todd Haley on his side. This guy's a wide receiver whisperer. He's got, the best quarterback of his career in either Tyrod Taylor or Baker, whichever one it ends up being. It's going to be better than anyone that's ever thrown to him. He had the 7th worst quarterback rating thrown to him when he led the league in 14 games receiving. So, it can only go up from there. Physical freak, complete dominant. Everything is pointing to a massive breakout and uncapped ceiling. But he has to get on the field. We have to see it before I can truly believe it. I'll still go all in on Gordon, though, round 5 or so. The upside just is unmatchable at that stage of the draft.
I agree. I don't see him, even with him being just so filled with red flags, and even with this not starting, I don't see him necessarily getting to round 5 in too many drafts. I really don't, because the upside is so great. So we'll see. Maybe if he is around that time, I can tell you right now, and we're drafting together in a few minutes, I would be tempted to grab him, and I know you would be too. We're going to be stealing people from each other.
I know. It's going to be so annoying.
I know. All right, number 3, let's talk. The Athletics, Michael Sean Duggar, and there are some great quotes in here. You know how I love quotes. Reports Doug Baldwin, and we're talking about his knee here, and this is a quote, clearly close to returning, and this is also a quote, fully.
I knew you'd have a field day with that one. I absolutely loved Baldwin before the injury started happening with him. And now, this happened and it was annoying, but I love the fact that he's going all the way now at this point. He has to really get on the field for me to feel 100% fully confident. Is this going to be something that could potentially linger? I'm not too sure, but ultimately he's one of the toughest players in the league. Doug Baldwin always has been. He's always played through little nagging things and dominated. And there's nobody else there that he's really competing with for targets at this point. There's definitely nobody with established red zone chemistry now that Jimmy Graham led the league in red zone targets is gone. Now that Paul Richardson, who was behind Jimmy Graham for red zone targets on the team, is gone. And we've seen Baldwin. He had, 15 touchdowns just 2 to 3 years ago when Graham and Richardson weren't threats there. Could he recreate that magic? Probably not. The unbelievable. He set NFL records for 10 touchdowns in 6 games. I don't think he's going to do that again, but he could certainly have his usual 1,200, 1,300 yards and see an uptick to that 8 to 10 touchdown range. I've always been a Baldwin guy. I know you have too. And yep. I'm willing to go back in on him. He's risen from the bottom of round 3, early round 4 of my big board with this concern lingering to now back up into early round 3. Not up into – he was round 2, over Tyreek Hill, over guys like that for me. Mm-hmm. At this point, no, I'm not doing that. But early round 3 after Diggs and Hill are gone, I could see – I would love Baldwin as my number 2 more than anything. I wouldn't be too comfortable with him as a number 1. But as my second receiver, if I go receiver in round 2, I would really love to have Baldwin for sure.
All right, I hear that. All right, number 4, and I told you I hate even hearing anything about this guy, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Dolphins coach Adam Gase, and that's not who I hate. I got no beef with Gase. Said Devontae Parker, and we're talking about his finger injury, still has not been cleared to catch. Stop the presses. Are his stats going to be any different? I don't know. Talk to us, Wolf. Tell me about Devontae Parker.
The fact this guy even gets drafted.
I'm a legitimate Devontae Parker hater.
I can't stand the guy. He's soft as all hell. He's got all the physical gifts you could ever ask for, and he's made nothing of it because he's complete soft nobody. Doesn't work hard. He can. All these reports come out that he's working as hard as blah, blah. It doesn't mean anything for this guy ever. I'll never trust Devontae Parker again. And this is another reason why. Obviously, he's not catching. That's a little bit important if you're a wide receiver. All this matters to me is it's just even more targets for Kenny Stills, for Danny Amendola. Parker's not even that great of a fit in this system anyways. Adam Gase, a very screen-heavy guy. He went out this offseason, targeted Albert Wilson, Danny Amendola, two very good receivers off the screen right now. And then obviously Kenny Stills, are very established chemistry there with Gase. Played really well with Ryan Tannehill a couple years back. We had a great interview with Elliot Christ, ffbdpod.com/Crist, Crist. If you haven't heard that one, it's our second Wolf segment after Field Yates, and this guy actually brought some Wolf takes to this one. Loves Kenny Stills, has him as his number one round 9 to 10 target wide receiver, sees him finishing potentially in the top 15, and all his points made sense. I don't know if I'll see him finishing that high, but the volume's certainly going to be there, and Parker being gone only opens up more. Obviously, Jarvis Landry was the number 1 guy there, and he's gone. Parker was the number 2 guy. He's gone. It's all great news to me. I loved Kenny Stills and Danny Amendola, a nice penny stock at this point. Yeah, he had a nice session. I don't know if you saw his little jaunt into the end zone this weekend, but read his blocks really well and shows like he's that perfect fit for the Gase screen game. He just would have to stay healthy, which he never does.
All right, we're going to get right into our preseason risers and fallers. We're going to preview the guide that, as I alluded to at the beginning of the show, is coming out soon. There's 10 must-know preseason risers in the guide. We're only going to touch on 3 tonight, so there's a lot more information even on the guys we're talking about, but then there's 7 other guys you're going to want to hear about as well. Wolf, real quick, remind us again, how can we get this guide? Where is it at? rotostreetjournal.com/draft day. This is the draft day update to everything we already did in that preseason kickoff. If you haven't read that, it's still worth reading. But if not, at this point, just wait for this guide. We'll have all the bargains that still mattered from that still in this one. We'll have all the overprices you want to avoid that still matter in this one, but it's going to be updated. And number 1 on this list is a clear reason why. We had some guys listed on overpriced that we didn't love their original situations leading into the preseason, but some trends, some usage. You never want to overreact to the preseason. I get that, but there are some stuff to see. First team snaps. How is the rapport between a new quarterback and his new weapons looking? Things like that really do matter. And people that ignore that, you can gain a huge edge on. And this is going to be that huge edge gainer for you, where we look at all the stuff that mattered in this preseason, who rose, who fell because of it. And if you miss out this, if you go to CVS and just drop, get yourself, if you're watching this, you're not a sheep. You're not going to do that. But anybody, there's so many people, they just show up with the ESPN magazine from CVS. That came out like a month and a half ago.
Right, exactly. So at that stage, you can get such a big leg up by downloading this. So again, rotostreetjournal.com/draft day, updated with all the crucial information of the preseason. Make sure you check that one out.
All right, I'm going to keep you to like 2 minutes max on each one of these. Who knows if you'll even go that far, but we're going to try to get out of here on time so we can actually get into the Roto Street Journal draft room and talk a little shit.
Right.
Let's start with Christian McCaffrey, who you alluded to. We've been all over McCaffrey all year, and not necessarily for the right reasons. We were down on McCaffrey for a while with the addition of C.J. Anderson, but he's our first riser, literally, and it was an easy choice for the first guy on the list. Christian McCaffrey, workhorse role confirmed. Talk to us about the change of mindset at the Roto Street Journal, yourself personally, and why it came about.
Yeah, absolutely. This guy is by far the biggest riser. And like we talked about last week, it's easy to have a guy rise when you believe in the talent. I've always loved McCaffrey. I just was not sure that the usage was going to be there, especially with C.J. Anderson coming in and DJ Moore and Greg Olsen returning. So receiving game usage might get eaten into, carries from C.J. Anderson might get eaten into. Those worries are all completely erased. This guy is the absolute engine of this offense, and there's no doubt about it. He logged 59 of 66 first-team snaps. That's 89% as compared to 7 of 66 for C.J. Anderson, just a measly 11. So C.J. Anderson, no worries. By far, McCaffrey was the highest targeted receiver, most carries. He had every single carry and touch inside the 10-yard line, was the only guy that came on the field in the red zone. So he's a true workhorse, 3 downs, red zone, everything. I didn't expect that from McCaffrey. He's a smaller frame. Didn't think he was going to be this much, especially after only 12.3 touches last year. But already, Ron Rivera said it's going to be ideal to get this guy 25 touches a week. And then, Norv Turner, the new offensive coordinator, said, yep, I agree with that. It's definitely realistic. And it seemed like coach speak, but this guy, Norv Turner, rode LaDainian Tomlinson, very similar frame, smaller guy, to absolute massive workloads. He knows how to get his guys into space, and so they're not taking taking humongous hits every play, whether it's the screen game, whether it's sweeps, tosses, fits McCaffrey's running style perfectly. So, I mean, again, nobody else was touching the field with the first team offense. His final stat line on the preseason is just insane. 221 total yards, 151 of them were rushing, 2 TDs, 21 total touches, and 8 catches, and just about 2.5 quarters of action. This guy could be a true, almost David Johnson style cheat code. I love him.
Yeah, it's really hard to disagree with anything that you just said. My expectations for him have been surpassed completely. If he doesn't pan out, it is going to be one of these things where it's like, oh, you guys went nuts on what you saw in the preseason, but it's like you can't unsee what we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've seen it. Like, so now I'm expecting to see it on the field at least. Some high percentage of what we saw in the preseason, I have to imagine is going to translate into the regular season. So we'll see what happens. Second guy on the list, and this is a guy that's being picked regularly, behind another receiver on his team, which to me at this point seems crazy. That's Emmanuel Sanders. Case Keenum's new slot target hog. I wonder, is it slot target hog or target? You know what? That's weird phrasing, but that's what he is. He's a target hog and he plays out of the slot. What have you seen out of Sanders?
Yeah, and those are both the two things. I didn't know exactly how to mesh those two together. A little confusing. But the key is he's playing the slot, and because of that, he's become a target hog, and it all makes sense.
Yep.
So this dress rehearsal week, he ran 74% of his routes out of the slot. That's 64% now in the whole preseason. Only 28% Sanders ran in the slot last year. And this is huge because Case Keenum is just notorious for peppering the slot. Adam Thielen's 25% target share of the slot led the NFL last year, and this was especially true on third downs. And we've already seen this translating in the preseason. Thielen only trailed Keenan Allen and DeAndre Hopkins with 32% of his team's targets on third downs. Again, all those coming out of the slot. And already this preseason, Sanders has 6 of Keenum's 10 third downs. So that's 60% target share. 15 of his 34 total throws in general have been gone to him. So that's 44% target share. Both tops of any wide receiver, whether it's third down percentage or just overall target percentage. That's the most by any wide receiver this entire preseason. And he's doing some damage with it at this point. He had 4 catches, 61 yards, then added a sweet 27-yard TD run, broke 1,000 tackles on it. It was incredible. So, you look at Thielen's massive 91 catch, 1,276-yard breakout, and Sanders is now playing that role. I know it's a different offensive coordinator, but you got that familiarity from the Keenum loves that short intermediate range. He has that comfort zone with this guy, and that's going to be Sanders this year. He's blowing up. So I love Sanders. I wasn't a huge Sanders guy going into the offseason, and now after the preseason, the fact that Demaryius Thomas is going even above him, never mind 50 picks more than Sanders right now. Sanders falling to 91, whereas Thomas goes around the 40s. Blows my mind. Those two should be completely flipped, and I'm all about Sanders right now.
All right, came in right at 2 minutes. Well played, Wolf.
Absolutely.
Well played. All right, number 3, Peyton Barber, a legitimate starting running back that you can get in your drafts in the 10th round and beyond. I am living proof of this. I got this guy in my hometown league, and I think the 14th round, the last round where it wasn't a defense or kicker taken. He was my last pick, which you said at the time might be the steal of the draft.
And I think it still is. I think it's only been more and more confirmed that it's the steal of the draft. I can't believe he got him that late. He's creeping up into around 8, 9 nowadays, and that's still maybe an undersell for this guy, what he's doing right now. He's had only, this preseason, week 3, had 5 carries, 34 yards, another touchdown, 6.8 yards per carry. Third straight week, he's gone over 5 yards a carry. So the guy's been very efficient with all his touches. His 14-yard touchdown run just kind of showed the type of runner he is. He's not pretty, but he'll find the creases, he'll break the tackles, and he'll just churn. And that was, you saw Doug Martin couldn't churn. He had like under 3 yards a carry last year behind this line. Barber had 4.5 yards a carry, the only guy to average over 4 yards a carry last year on this team. And now he's going to be feasting. I mean, they've already said this guy's the starter. Dirk Cutter came out and said it last week. He had all of the 8 first-team snaps this week. It's all been confirmed that it's going to be the Barber show. And then you compare him to Jones. We're going to talk about fallers in a second. And it's pretty clear. I mean, Jones has more carries, 18 carries, as compared to 15 for Barber. 15's gone. I mean, Barber's taken those 15 for 87 yards and 2 TDs, whereas Jones taken his 18 for 18 yards, an average of 1 yard per carry, as compared to 5.8 for Barber. His long carry, Jones, is 5 yards this preseason. So, I mean, he's been completely abysmal, whereas Barber's shined. And at this point, it's pretty clear who that starter is going to be. Dirk Cutter even said, we're not opposed to giving this guy 20 touches a game. That's what we like what he's going to do if we gave him that. It's a workhorse that you're getting in around 8 or 9. I'm all about it.
All right, I'm convinced, and I mean that makes me feel fantastic because my running back situation is a little sketchy, and it would sure be nice to have grabbed a legitimate starter, maybe a starter for the season in the 14th round. All right, where you got risers, you obviously have fallers. You can't have one without the other. Mm-hmm. Obviously, and amidst those risers, as we referred to, like there's people that are falling, C.J. Anderson, Demaryius Thomas. They're going to see less work with the emerging, and I love this term, volume vacuums that are forming around them. Ronald Jones, as we just talked about, has lost more steam than anybody, maybe in the entire preseason. Rookie running backs in general, Darius Geis, of course. I mean, that's a sad fall. Rashaad Penny, Nick Chubb, these are all featured fallers, and you can read about them in the guide. We're going to get into one of them, one of the more hyped up guys who we've never been a fan of. And I can say, honestly, I've literally never been a fan of this guy, no matter what team he was on. I've been very consistent for years now. And this preseason only further slid him down the list. And that, of course, Sammy Watkins. We got a little shit for having him so low and Tyreek Hill so high. I mean, lots of experts, and we're going to use experts gently, but lots of experts moved Tyreek dramatically lower, even with last year proving he's not like a gadget player. They still had him low deep into round 3 because of the move, picking up Sammy Watkins. Let's check out how this has played out so far. Wolf, take it away.
Yeah, so again, we were always Tyreek Hill guys, and the only positive of Sammy Watkins joining this team was he's kept Tyreek Hill's ADP in the 3rd round, which is just embarrassing. And if that's still going to happen in drafts after this preseason, then by all means, please sign me up. I'm all in on Tyreek again. And let's look at the difference between these two. Sammy Watkins, he's seen 7 looks from Pat Mahomes. That's only 16% of his target share. And he's hauled in just one of those 7 looks, 15 yards, and no TDs. Instead, he's had 1 drop, one of his targets go for an interception, and one that should have been an interception that got dropped. So Sammy Watkins clearly disastrous so far. And I'm not saying that he's going to be a complete disaster all year. He'll have his big games, but it's pretty damn clear he's the 4th option at best on this team right now, which is what we've been saying all along. We've said Tyreek Hill, Kareem Hunt, Travis Kelce are all above this guy. Where is he going to fit in? So yeah, he'll have his blowups, but are you going to ever be able to predict that? Probably not. Meanwhile, let's look at Tyreek Hill. Clearly, Pat Mahomes' favorite target. He's seen a team-high 14 targets. That's 33% of his 42 throws. He's got 183 yards on those 14 targets and 1 TD, which we all saw in week 2, that 69-yard, beautiful TD bomb. That just
gotten us like 70,000 views on YouTube.
Exactly. My favorite TD bomb of all time.
Sure.
And that's exactly why we've loved Mahomes and loved Tyreek, is because we saw him buy time and then just as if it was nothing, just rope that thing down the field, 70 yards, just a flick of the wrist. And that's going to be happening all season. So you see all these stats. He only had 4 red zone targets. He never had a touchdown that was less than 35 yards. I don't give a shit. I'd rather have a 70-yard bomb touchdown than a 2-yard red zone outlook. And he's going to keep doing that. This preseason to this dress rehearsal week might have even been more important, more impressive to me than his week 2 70-yard bomb, in the sense that he had 8 targets, catches all 8 of them for 88 yards, just dominating every layer of the field. 3rd down, just a quick 5-yard out, breaking tackles to get the first. Just tons of little looks like that you might think would go to the more complete guy, Sammy Watkins. It was Tyreek Hill dominating those looks. So, it's been a huge stark contrast, not even close in terms of how many targets they're getting. Hill's doubled them up. The production, 15 yards versus 184 one more time, just so you know that. Crazy. Interceptions on Sammy Watkins throws, touchdowns to Hill. It's just a no-brainer who the number 1 is here. And if Sammy Watkins is going to keep Hill in the 3rd round still, then you're a sheep. You're a joke. Tyreek Hill's the man.
This just ended up being a complete puff piece for Tyreek Hill, by the way. It wasn't.
Yeah, no, but I'm not going to say Sammy Watkins sucks.
But it makes the point. I hate when people say, and I know you said this kind of tongue-in-cheek, but when someone says Sammy, the more complete receiver. It's like, who the hell cares? Like, Hill's clearly better than him.
Right.
Like, what complete how? Like, not as fast, worse hands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, more complete.
Right.
Anyway, let's talk mailbag, because we do have a couple mailbags in.
We have some questions going on in the live broadcast now that I look at it, too. I couldn't see him on our thing, but our boy Danger Close is tuning in, Nat. Remember him?
I do.
He's the one that good to see you, man. I love that draft you sent me the other day, by the way. You did a great job. I'm gonna have to start looking at these questions.
We didn't know if we'd have any viewers for this, so we've exceeded expectations. Thanks for asking the question. Fire away. I can't see the question, so give it to me.
I will. We'll run through these three. I'm kind of catching up on him right now. He's just commented. He said Wolfpack guys he's talking about Josh Gordon at this point, I imagine. Shape of his life, off the drugs, upside, Josh Gordon, which we agree with. Truth, all those shirts on sale. So obviously CJ wants them. CJ, new merchandise came in today. I just got the call from Ben Franklin. So
new merch.
We got, dude, Nat, I haven't even told you about some of this. Polos, tank tops, tons of great stuff. Trucker hats. I mean, we're taking our merchandise to the next level this summer.
Send me a sample pack.
Oh, absolutely. We'll send you a little smorgasbord.
All right.
Top 5 finish for McCaffrey says close, and we're all in. Sanders on my bench. LMAO, he's laughing his ass off at that. Wolfpack abides. Yep, we're all with you, close. So, yep, no disagreements here. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all the engagement, Danger. And if you have any questions, please feel free to add them on.
Awesome. All right, let's get into the mailbag that we already had. And if somebody pops up or has another question while we're doing this, maybe we'll get to it. We got 7 or 8 minutes left, so we'll see what happens. Question number 1 is from Jake. I have pick 4 of 12 in a PPR league. Are Zeke's offensive line concerns enough to worry you and now go for Antonio Brown instead? Who would you pair up with either one of those guys in round 2 if you took them in round 1? Good question.
Yeah, great, fantastic question. And I'm glad you brought up Zeke's line concerns. He's dropped to number 4 because of that for me. But you guys, if you've been listening to this, you know my status. It is workhorse as much as I can. I'm not passing up on a top 4 workhorse, especially these locked-in guys, especially with more receiving work potentially coming for Zeke this year. I love Antonio Brown. I know how high the floor and how high the ceiling are. He's a huge edge at wide receiver compared to everyone outside of DeAndre Hopkins. I'm still going for the horse, though. I'm still going with Zeke. There's such a big drop-off, not only just after those top 4, but then after the top 12 in general. You're not going to get a top 12 running back, most likely, if you pass up on one there. I need the horse, so I'm going with him. And I'll look for a guy like, obviously, Christian McCaffrey would be the ideal guy if he falls there in round 2 at this point, which is crazy, again, that we flipped that much on this, saying he was once overpriced in round 2 to saying he's an absolute steal. But if he falls there, Christian McCaffrey, a PPR league, would be a dominant steal. And if not him, Jordan Howard, you guys know how high I am on him. They're saying he's going to be a third down back. Matt Nagy is him and Tariq Cohen on the field a lot at the same time. Cohen more at wide receiver than anything at this point. Not that I think that Howard's going to be this monster third down back all of a sudden, but he'll get some more looks. He's worked on improving those hands. He's going to be running more out of the shotgun this year, inside zone, which is what his whole game was at Indiana. He was an absolute monster playing in the system. Averaged, no surprise then, that he's averaged 6.5 yards a carry out of the shotgun as compared to 4.3 under center. Now much more of that's a staple under Nagy. 45% of Kareem Hunt's runs were out of the shotgun formation last year, much more than Jordan Howard saw. So a better fitting scheme for him and a better overall offense. I would love to see Jordan Howard, whether I go AB or Zeke. If Christian McCaffrey's not there, I'm looking to get Jordan Howard there.
I mean, I want to say I agree with you completely. I actually, in the draft that I did just last week on Thursday, now it's a draft with a weird roster setup and a weird scoring system. It's a 1 running back, 2 wide receiver, and then 3 flex. And one of those flexes you can play a second quarterback in league. And it is 2-point PPR. And
weird.
I had the opportunity at pick 5 to take Zeke or Antonio Brown, and I took Brown.
At 2-point PPR, that's a no-brainer. Zeke, I mean, AB should go number 1 overall in a 2-point PPR.
There's other, I mean, looking at how the league went, I mean, it was like everybody drafted wrong, probably including me. But, there's other random ways for running backs. It's like a high point league. There's other ways that like Zeke could get points too, but 2-point PPR, and you only got to field 1 running back. I took Antonio Brown.
And I don't blame you there. That's smart.
All right, question number 2. If I'm in a keeper league, who are some late round guys to take stabs on that might pan out huge for me in 2018? This is from Meat Sweats himself, the sweatiest of meats.
And I got this question from him yesterday, and we had his draft, and I gave him some names to target. So I just kind of want to refresh this now.
We'll run them down. We got a couple minutes left.
Absolutely. The first name to look at, not necessarily a real late round guy, but a guy I told Meat Sweats to make sure to target, Tevin Coleman, free agent running back this year. Who knows if the Falcons will go all out to re-sign this guy when they already have Devonta Freeman as their number one. So maybe Coleman lands in a whole new situation. What if he goes to the Texans, let's say, and they get rid of Lamar Miller's plodding ass, and we see Tevin Coleman, very talented, very speedy guy that could absolutely be a featured back. I could see him landing somewhere. You get him in round 7. He lands with the Texans. He's a round 1 pick next year. Humongous potential value. Otherwise, Darius Geis. I know, you're going to have to stash him and wait and not get any value this year for him. But if you can get him around 13 of this year's draft because no one else is thinking of him, and then suddenly he turns over next year, you get Darius Geis, round 2, round 1 even potential running back, the way he looked this preseason for a 13th round price. That's another no-brainer. And the last one I would say is James Conner. The backup for the Steelers right now. Obviously, Le'Veon Bell probably going to report. Everything should be okay. But he's a free agent. You got to think that the bad blood is boiled enough between these two teams. I could see Bell definitely being in a new uniform next year. And James Conner's been so good, you'd expect them to draft a guy or pick up a free agent. But there is a chance James Conner would enter 2019 as the featured back for the Steelers. Sweats took him in the last round last night. And everybody in the draft was like, no, I wanted Conner. He was on my list. This is the guide for keeper leagues to definitely check and circle because he could be the Steelers' featured back come next year.
Way to go, Sweats.
Yes.
All right, last one. Will Cotter, 4 days out from draft day. I am pick number 5. Have you put any thought into how to draft a 10-man league? I assume he's talking about a 10-team league.
Mm-hmm.
I know you deal with 12-team leagues more. Does your philosophy change at all? I have a couple of thoughts on that. What do you think?
It doesn't change a whole ton. But ultimately, there is more depth at running back and receiver when there's only 10 teams versus 12. You don't think it would make that big of a difference, only 2 less teams, but it really does. It really adds some depth at the end of the draft. You're still seeing guys like Tariq Cohen and Lynch and people sitting around rounds 10 or so because it does just end up being that much more depth at the positions. So it changes a little bit. I really like getting a guy like Gronk, getting that huge tight end edge.
Yeah.
A guy like maybe Deshaun Watson, that type of cheat code at quarterback. I don't ever like to reach on quarterbacks. I'm still not going to be like, oh, I need to get Watson round 3 now. But let's say Gronk's there at the end of round 2 where he's normally going. Let's say Watson falls to the end of round 5 or early 6. These are the type of leagues you want to get those edges on. So it changes a little bit in that sense. Supply and demand, those philosophies we always preach. In 12-team leagues, the running backs and wide receivers thin out so much faster, whereas there's only 10 starters at quarterback and tight end. You really want to get that edge in that case, and it's pretty easy to gain it in a 10-team league when you have the depth options. So that's where I might take a quarterback and a tight end a little bit earlier and make sure I lock in those single edges in a 10-team league.
I agree with that completely. That was exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say, it piles up, and on the couple of positions where there is a clear-cut edge from the top 2-3 guys, nice to take a stab at those. I mean, you could include the workhorse running backs in that as well. Obviously, you're probably taking those guys. You got one of the first 4, maybe even 5 picks anyway. But something like tight end where there is a really pronounced edge to having one of the top guys or even the top guy, yeah, I'd be more inclined to do that. I agree.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right, that's going to do it for the mailbag. We're going to get out of here right now because we got the Roto Street Journal expert draft coming up in 20 minutes. We're certainly going to be chatting about that in the future. If you tuned in, thanks a lot. If you didn't, you're going to see us, and it's not your fault if you didn't, by the way. Nobody knew we were doing this. But if you didn't, we're going to be releasing this hopefully as episode 31 for the podcast, hopefully in the next day or 2. We'll see what happens. Enjoy your drafts. I know you guys got a lot coming up. The whirlwind is at its apex. Mm-hmm. And next Thursday, we got real football. Wolf, you got any social media you want to pump up?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you just mentioned, this is our first time doing this. So let us know if you did tune in. And if you didn't tune in and you're watching the replay, anything we could do better, anything we enjoyed to do again. Hopefully this just becomes the new norm that we broadcast this live every week. And we obviously, of course, want to be as useful and helpful as possible. So I don't know if we missed any questions, anything like that. I apologize if you sent something in and we missed. I just saw a lot of comments from Danger. And Danger, again, thanks for watching. But if you want to get the show notes for this and catch any other episode you might have missed, visit ffbdpod.com, ffbdpod.com. Find all the show notes there for any episode that you might have missed. You can visit us at rotostreetjournal.com is our homepage. Roto Street Journal on Facebook, Instagram. Definitely follow us there. We have a lot of broadcasts going on both of those. And then Roto ST Journal on Twitter and Snapchat. Me personally, find me at Roto Street Wolf on Twitter and Snapchat as well, taking questions all the time, daily draft wizard requests, whatever it is. It's the time of the year for fantasy football. It's my favorite time of the year. So I'd love to chat it with you and anybody else. Hit me up.
That's it. My name is Nat the Truth Jones.
And I'm the Wolf. See you guys
later.